Good morning, everybody. It is October 25th, 2012. Of course, it's a Thursday morning, and we have a lot to talk about this morning, so let's get right down to it. Currently, observations as of 8 a.m. range from the lower 50s, even a few upper 40s over portions of just north of Messina, over the northern interior, mid to upper 50s over much of the rest of the region. Lower 60s already starting to pop up over the southern coast of New Jersey and also portions of Delaware and Maryland. We also have overcast skies throughout the entire northern mid-Atlantic with a little bit of fog here and there as well. That fog is starting to lift. And as you can see, we have a bit of an easterly component in the winds, around 5 miles per hour or so, as Canadian high pressure is in control. Let's take a look at the latest infrared satellite picture. You can see that high pressure system clearly in control, producing an east to northeasterly wind throughout the entire northern mid-Atlantic. Here we have our stationary front. Basically, this is a pretty good representation of cold air damming in the fall. And you could thank this high pressure system because of our negative NAO pattern. Yes, the same negative NAO pattern that will likely keep Hurricane Sandy from exiting out into the Atlantic. More on that in just a moment. And of course, here we have our very slow moving cold front. And again, this is all because the pattern is being blocked up over the northern Atlantic. This cold front is not going to be moving all that much today. And as a result, the timing is starting to set up just right for a very interesting evolution towards the end of this upcoming weekend and early next week. So let's dive down into the tropics and talk about what everyone's been talking about, which is Hurricane Sandy. Now, Hurricane Sandy is stronger than what any of the model guys had suggested. As it was moving over Cuba, I was suggesting late last night that Sandy might actually be a very strong Category 2 hurricane, if not stronger. And lo and behold, as it moved over portions of eastern Cuba, it had winds of 110 miles per hour. Today, actually this morning, obviously it's a little bit weaker with 105 mile per hour winds. The convection declined a bit in strength, which should be expected considering it moved over land in Cuba. And now, notice over the past hour or so, now we're starting to see that convection refiring right around the center. This is a very compact and very tightly wound low-level circulation with the Hurricane Sandy. So what does that mean? Well, it means that considering the outflow pattern is very strong, very well developed, that Sandy's going to be able to intensify rather remarkably over portions of the Bahamas today. Keep an eye on Sandy. We're getting a new image in right now as I speak. And again, look, the convection's starting to expand and grow on the southwestern semicircle of the low-level circulation. Do not be surprised if we see an eye reform and become very well established this afternoon. And don't be surprised if we see some impressive intensification. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Again, there's that word surprise. Of whether Sandy becomes a Category 3 hurricane. It would not surprise me one bit, considering it's already at 105 mile per hour winds. It's going to be a very favorable environment for intensification, very warm waters, not much in the way of shear. There's an upper level disturbance on the eastern tip of Cuba that's shifting off towards the west. That disturbance is actually going to enhance the outflow boundary of our hurricane and also start to pull a little more towards the north-northwest over the next 24 hours. So clearly, this hurricane is something to be reckoned with. Let's step back. This is the water vapor satellite picture right now of all of North America and the northern Atlantic. As you can see, what's left of Tropical Storm Tony is becoming entrained in the 500 millibar pattern. Here comes our negative NAO pattern becoming very strong. Nice 50-50 load developing, 50 north, 50 west. And of course we have our high latitude blocking setting up, producing our high pressure system. Here's our trough and our disturbance starting to enter into the fray here. Now it is fully analyzed and basically sampled for upper level information. And of course, here's our hurricane. Now here's our disturbance I was talking about that's going to continue to shift into the Gulf. This disturbance will basically, one, enhance the outflow that you're seeing here, and two, pull our hurricane more towards the northwest. That is why Sandy's going to shift to the northwest first over the next couple of hours because of this upper level disturbance. The second reason is that it's not going to have anywhere to go. It can't go out into the Atlantic because of all this blocking setting up over the northern Atlantic. You're going to have increased heights developing right around here over the next 48 hours, and that's going to continue on through this weekend. So really the corridor of where our hurricane can go is basically from the coastal waters of New England to the eastern Great Lakes, right in this corridor right here, because it has nowhere else to go. And that means it's going to be in perfect position for our trough that's already starting to tilt into negative fashion to pick up our hurricane and create all sorts of problems. Now, I know everyone loves the models, so let's go through all the models. Here we have the NAM model guidance as of the 0Z guidance here, and you could see it was suggesting, it was already starting to suggest a phasing of this storm. Okay, this is the latest model guidance from the NAM, and as you can clearly see, towards the end of the NAM model guidance, which I know is not the most reliable, but let's say up to 66 hours, is clearly a potential here for phasing. Okay, that's the NAM model guidance. Canadian model guidance, even more impressive, produces a strong phase and drives our storm right into the northern Mid-Atlantic and New England, producing all sorts of havoc for Sunday night through Monday into Tuesday. See the trend here? Phase again. Okay, so what about the GFS? Well, let's look at the latest GFS, the 06Z GFS. I know it's the 06Z, it's an off hour, but notice the trend here. The 0Z GFS tried to kick the storm out. Now, well, look at that. Now it's starting to rephase it. Now it's trying to produce a phase solution. A little bit late in the game, but still it's there. Okay? The question is not if this hurricane will phase with this trough. The question is when. And regardless of when, we're going to have some significant impacts from this storm from basically Washington, D.C. all the way up through Boston. Okay, let's just put it out there right now. Anyone in that corridor is going to be dealing with this storm, and it's going to be rather nasty Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So now we're going to the European model guidance. I like the European model guidance because it's the most consistent, it makes the most sense, and quite frankly, it's been doing pretty well with our hurricane for the most part as far as forecasting intensity. So here we are for this evening. Again, there's not much in the way to prevent our hurricane from intensifying, so I expect our Hurricane Sandy, to be intensifying. Here's our negative NAO pattern. Here's our trough developing and intensifying. By Friday evening, our trough starts to go negatively tilted. Notice the increased heights here. This purple means sinking air. This is basically like a roadblock. This is basically saying you cannot go any further east. This is your roadblock right here. Okay? And you can see that with the dry air right here. So we know that there's a corridor setting up in this location on Friday evening, basically shuttling our hurricane towards the northeast Bahamas and then towards the Carolina coastal waters. By the time we head into Sunday evening, notice our 500 millibar pattern is starting to phase. It's captured our hurricane. At this point, it's still a warm core low. Again, here's our blocking mechanism. Here is our fence. This hurricane will not move through this sinking air. It just won't. It physically will not be possible to do so. And you can see that ridge developing. So again, here's our corridor right here. Here's our trough starting to pick up our hurricane. This hurricane is still a warm core system. You can see the warm air focusing over the top of our hurricane. So this is clearly a warm core storm still as of Saturday night. Then we move to Sunday night. Now this is a phase. Now, important note here is that our hurricane starts to transition to a subtropical or extratropical storm at this point. The wind field will probably start to expand. Our winds actually might weaken a bit because of this transition, but they'll also expand in coverage. Very heavy rainfall from the Carolinas all the way up into the New York City metropolitan area, possibly into the Boston metropolitan area on Sunday evening. Again, here's our block. This is what keeps our hurricane from exiting out into the Atlantic. And even now, the newest GFS is starting to realize this fact. So, with that in play, our hurricane transitions into a subtropical or extratropical storm. By Monday evening, it's basically sitting right over the northern mid-Atlantic. Now, exactly where this storm will be sitting will determine the impacts as far as coastal flooding, precipitation type. Yes, you heard me, precipitation type. You see, you have cold air building in. So if you're in portions of, let's say, West Virginia, your higher elevations in western Pennsylvania, watch out. It's actually could transition to a very impressive snow event. Something to just keep an eye on. We have to watch this. But again, this all depends on exactly where our storm develops, how it moves, how it phases, and exactly where that surface and upper level low is located. So there's still a lot of details to work out. But the point here is that a phase looks likely. It's the most reasonable solution and one that, quite frankly, needs to be watched very carefully. At the very least, expect widespread heavy rain with this event, and also very strong winds. Again, the potential for coastal flooding will directly be determined by where exactly the surface low pressure moves. Of course, with the natural high tides because of the full moon, you're still going to be dealing with coastal flooding, but the question of where this low tracks will determine whether you have winds coming into the coastal plain and, certain tributaries and bays. Depending on that wind, well, you get worse coastal flooding than not. So we're going to have to watch that very carefully. Here we are on Tuesday. Well, it's still sitting there. It's not really going anywhere because of our blocking in place. So our storm now is clearly an extratropical storm at this point. Again, notice the cold air. Now, the reason why I've been mentioning snow even at the coastal plains is that you have a tremendous amount of lifting here. You have cold air invading from the west. I'm not saying it's going to be snowing as far as accumulating in New York City or Philadelphia, but don't be surprised if you see some snowflakes out there mixed in the rain because of all this strong lifting and very cold air invading from the west. Something to keep an eye on again as the storm evolves and changes. Finally, for all of those who are interested about Halloween, our storm lifts off to the north towards Syracuse. As it's doing so, dry air will start to work in. We'll still be dealing with a few scattered showers and clearly windy conditions on Halloween, but all you ghouls and goblins out there will be able to go out there and enjoy your holiday, enjoy the Halloween festivities. Just use some caution and be mindful of those stronger winds. That is your forecast discussion for today. Of course, I'll be monitoring this storm through the day and providing updates. I'm going to back off on the more frequent updates for now, as I want to really get a feel of this storm and really break down the potential here. And once I have more details, I'll share them with you. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. This is an NYNJPA weather production, part of the Storm Surge LLC group. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.